Good evening, everyone. We're going to call tonight's meeting to order. We'll begin with an approval of tonight's agenda. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Stevens and Councillor McIntosh. All in favor? And that's carried. Any disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we will begin with the singing of our national anthem, and I will ask that you rise if you're able. We would like to acknowledge the treaty lands and territory of the Williams Treaty Nations and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We also recognize that Dufferin County is the traditional territory of the Wendat and the Haudenosaunee and is home to many Indigenous people today. Tonight's meeting is being aired on public television and or streamed live and may be taped for later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of the meeting. Any member of the public connecting via telephone is reminded to press *6 to mute and unmute, and a reminder to please remain muted until the chair requests comments or questions from the public. As this is a special council meeting, council is only permitted to discuss items for which the meeting was called. Therefore, all open forum comments for this meeting shall be restricted to the current agenda items, which is the capital budget presentation. Was there anybody online with any questions? And was there anybody in the gallery? Not seeing anybody. So we will move straight into presentations, petitions, and delegations. Before we move into the capital budget presentation, can I have a motion to waive the time limit? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Prendergast, all in favor? And that is carried. I will turn the floor over to CAO Smith to begin.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Post, and thank you to members of council for your questions and ongoing dialogue throughout the year that helped inform this budget. And thank you, Mayor Post, again for continuing to trust council and staff by delegating your strong mayor powers. Staff believe we were on the right track together. Our town is spectacular, yet there are things that we need to do better at today. Not in a few years, not in a decade, but today. Investing in infrastructure now allows us to catch up on neglected needs, spend less over the long haul, and keep our community safe. The proposed capital budget moves us along the right path, and I'm looking forward to this evening. My continued thanks, of course, to our management team for providing their expertise in the 2026 budget process. And I would also, again, like to thank our finance team for their leadership in this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And I will invite Ms. Braun up to the podium to do the beginning part of the presentation for the capital budget.
Thank you, Mayor Post. Council and members of the community, I'm pleased to lead the deeper conversation on the town's proposed 2026 to 2035 capital program this evening. Tonight is for asking questions about anything you wish to understand about the tabled capital program. Tomorrow we will be reviewing the operating budget in greater detail and concluding that meeting hopefully with final budget adoption. You are welcome to ask questions as they occur to you, but there are also slide numbers on every content slide for your reference should you choose to hold your questions until we reach the end. A reminder of where we're at in the budget process. We are sitting here one day before, hopefully, final budget adoption. I put notes in here. It feels a little like Christmas Eve. The layout of today's discussion will start off with an overview of the 2026 capital budget and overall 10-year capital program. We will be following this up with a deeper discussion at the departmental level led by our general managers to provide an opportunity for more context on certain key capital projects that are worth highlighting. We will pause for questions following each division, but we will also pause before we adjourn to provide the one final opportunity for council to pose any questions that occur to them as the presentation unfolds. Starting off with a look at the expenditure composition of the capital budget for 2026, we see that we have approximately $44 million in works that aren't anticipated to be completed by the end of this year being carried over into 2026. This aligns with our theme of finishing what we've started and continuing to invest in what matters. In terms of continuing with important investments, there are new requests of approximately $20 million that are either a continuation of projects that have started and were planned to be spent in 2026, or reflections of investments in new, very important projects. In terms of the split between carry forward and new requests, it's approximately 2/3 carry forward, 1/3 new requests. This slide provides a bit more granularity by division for carry forwards and new requests. Unfortunately, the published version of this slide dropped the data labels on that vertical axis for every second division, so this is a correction for that. So we've just decreased the font a little so you can see all the data points. Suffice it to say that the bulk of the carry forwards and overall capital expenditure are in those top three divisions at the top of the graph, being fire, water, and capital works, which combined account for $42 million of the $64 million total. In terms of capital funding for the 2026 capital budget, there are only a handful of funding sources available. Property taxes, in the form of both reserves and debt, will pay for the majority of the capital program in 2026, about 53% or $34 million. User rates, so that's the water and wastewater rates, debt and reserves will pay for another 16% of the capital funding needs, or $10 million. Development charges are planned to fund another 16% or $10 million. And finally, grants, subsidies, and third-party recoveries provide the remaining 15% or just under $10 million. This page is actually right out of the budget document and provides further details of 2026 capital budgets and the 9-year forecast by division. At the overview meeting on December 1st, we made some comments about the expenditure profile being weighted heavier to the first 5 years in comparison to the last 5 years. Some of that is due to plans to address asset renewal backlogs and address critical infrastructure needs. We also know that we will be needing to be doing a little less, what we need to do is a little less defined further out in the capital forecast. And so as we roll forward and get closer to the 2031, 2035 timeframe, we will be refining those numbers and the profile could change. This graph provides a visual representation of both capital expenditure by year and the funding sources that are planned to be used to pay for those expenditures. We can see that we will be drawing down on property tax and development charge reserves, particularly over the next 1 to 3 years. We also plan to issue larger amounts of tax-supported debt in 2026 and 2027, so that's that lighter green segment of the bars, of the stacked bar, and that relates largely to the new fire hall. The budget document has a page or two for each division outlining expenditure by project with a summary of the amounts of funding needed from each source to pay for that divisional expenditure. Something happened here. Hold on one moment, please. I did speak to this slide back on December 1st, but it bears repeating. In order to be financially sustainable in the long run, we really do need to pay attention to our debt levels. As it currently stands, the 10-year capital program contemplates debt issuances of almost $50 million in the next 5 years. The graph on this slide shows the corresponding levels of projected debt outstanding. So that's, again, that big, tall, dark blue bar, and how this will lead to elevated debt servicing costs, or the flatter orange bars. The orange line across the graph indicates a projection of the town's annual debt repayment limit, which is prescribed by the province to be at a maximum 25% of own source revenues, excluding development charges. So the town is currently sitting at approximately 6%, and this limit is projected to climb to over 9% in the next 5 years. This level is still well below the 25% limit legislated by the province, although it is approaching the 12% internal guideline that was recently adopted through the long-term borrowing policy. We thought it might be helpful to share some additional information on the cost of borrowing, which directly impacts the cost of our capital projects. The cost of borrowing will generally be tied to the overnight rate for the Bank of Canada, with our cost of borrowing being a 1 to 2% premium over that rate. We can see the remnants of a historically low borrowing cost back in 2020 and 2021, before the Bank of Canada undertook some policy action to curb inflation. Rates hopefully reached their peak in 2023 and have modestly declined since that peak. The base rate is now sitting at 2.25%, and we are seeing some relief in the rates that are currently being quoted to us for our fall issue. Right now, Infrastructure Ontario is offering 10-year money for about 3.9%. Again, this slide was presented back on December 1st, and we left it in for completeness. The chart illustrates projected year-end balances of the town's reserves over the next 10 years. We've broken it down by the funding source for each reserve category, and we can see that development charge reserves in particular are of concern, as these are projected to be in a deficit position over the next 10 years. There was a question actually on slower development charge collections on Monday night, and I just wanted to reiterate that some of the actions that might need to be taken. While tax and user rates do serve as a backstop for development charge revenue, staff would first review planned projects to see which could be paused until there are sufficient collections to cover the cost. A second action would potentially be to issue more growth-related debt, but this carries with it higher collection risk due to that volatility of development charge collection revenue. And we already have some DC-funded debt for wastewater, and if collections are not sufficient to cover those obligatory debt servicing costs, we could consider a very temporary borrowing from our tax and user rate reserves and then repay those reserves once those collections come through the door. At the end of the day, we would need to strike a balance between ensuring only infrastructure projects that are critical for growth to proceed, such as those that support water and wastewater capacity, are prioritized ahead of projects that don't necessarily inhibit development from proceeding, such as road widening. We can always deal with a little bit of road congestion until the development is completed and we receive those development charges. More broadly speaking, the trend seems to indicate higher levels of investment over the next 4 years, which is drawing down on reserve balances overall. It should be noted that although the trend seems to improve over the latter years, we also know that that planning horizon in the last 5 years is less defined, and so we'll need to monitor that. And as a final note on the consolidated budget from the long-term perspective, we wanted to highlight some of the foundational work we've been doing over the last 12 to 18 months on our long-term integrated financial strategy. We've completed a number of what we're calling chapters. These chapters are essentially essential building blocks for laying a foundation for good financial governance and sustainability. So the chapters that we've completed are implementing a comprehensive user fees and charges bylaw, completing a development charge background study, and implementing a bylaw, which unfortunately is under appeal at the moment, but it's in place right now. Establishing a reserve fund framework with policies that support contributions. The asset management program update, which highlighted some funding gaps for asset renewal. And most recently, our debt management strategy. So in 2026 and the future, some of the chapters that we'll be working on are an investment strategy, a more comprehensive asset renewal funding strategy, a growth optimization strategy, because we don't want to just grow everywhere. We want to target our growth and make sure it's the most efficient form of growth. And then also formalizing budget principles and policies. Some of the benchmarking and work that we've been doing now, we might put those into more formal policies. And so now I think I'm turning it over to the General Manager of Infrastructure, Tim Koselleck, to walk us through some of the capital highlights for his department. So over to you, Tim.
Just briefly before I turn over to Mr. Koselleck, was there any questions on anything that Ms. Braun presented so far from council? No? Okay. Mr. Koselleck, over to you.
Good evening, Mayor Post and members of council. Thanks for allowing me to speak. Wanted to go over 5 key projects that we have in the budget and provide a bit more information. The first project we have is the town's official plan. So it's a new official plan to guide how the town will grow and develop for the next 30 years. Our original official plan was done in 1985, and we did a comprehensive review in 2010 and 2015. And it was paused since that time to, now it's being done to align with the county and the provincial policies. The county just approved their official plan a few months ago, so we want to proceed with ours. So we're looking at beginning early in the new year. It's expected to take about 18 months. And the project will update our policies to align with the local priorities, the direction from the county and the province. The second project I wanted to talk about, as CAO Smith mentioned in his opening statement, the budget is an investment in infrastructure, and one of the key projects we have is the West Sector Reservoir. So the West Sector Reservoir is located on the west side of town near Beeline, and it was constructed in 1993 or 1999 and provides water for the houses in that area. We constructed a new water storage facility at Well 5, and this will allow the West Sector Reservoir to be taken out of service for maintenance. So we're looking at starting that in the spring, and part of it will be the rehabilitation or replacement of some of the steel in the bowl. It hasn't had maintenance on it in over 20 years, so when we get in, we'll see how much work it needs to be done. One of the things we're also looking at putting in to improve the system is a water mixing system in the tower. It keeps the water moving, prevents it from freezing, ensures the water stays fresh in the system. And we're also looking at putting new coatings on the interior and exterior of the tower. It'll help prevent any future issues with the interior coatings and have the tower last longer and prevent any rust or damage to it. The third item I want to talk to was the pull-in well. So I think it's been talked about a little bit lately, but it's the first new water supply the town's brought online since 2007. So with this, we're doing currently a Tier 3 study, it's called, and it's looking at the groundwater. Groundwater doesn't know municipal borders, so it covers all the areas. So we're working with Amaranth, Mono, East Garifraxa, and the town to evaluate the groundwater in the area. And it's one of the key components before we proceed with the detailed design. So in 2026, we're looking at doing an environmental assessment to do a preliminary design and evaluation for a new pumping station, the new well, and also a new storage facility. One of the things we want to do have that preliminary study done is we can then proceed to the detailed design in 2027 and bring it online hopefully in 2028. One of the important things to note with this, we received funding from the province earlier this year of approximately $6.1 million, and that's for this project and also improvements we have for Well 6, which is another well improvement project we have. So with both those projects going forward, we're really setting up the town's water supply to meet the needs of today and the future. The fourth item I wanted to mention was the SCADA upgrades. So for those who don't know, SCADA is used to operate, monitor, document all the operations of our drinking water wells, our storage facilities, pump stations, the wastewater treatment plant. And a lot of the systems we have right now are outdated or becoming outdated. What we're looking at doing is coming up with a new comprehensive system that'll bring major benefits to the town by replacing the legacy instruments that it's difficult to maintain, and will have enhanced reliability, improved compatibility with new technologies, will strengthen our security of the system, increase efficiency and accuracy and data management. The new instrument should typically require less maintenance, resulting in less downtime and disruptions in the system. Upgrading ensures the systems are future-proof, allow for seamless adaptation of technology. So what we're looking at doing is 2026, we're going to do a lot of the design work with implementation in 2027 and future years. The last thing I want to talk about was our road resurfacing program. It's a new dedicated program we started a few years ago, and it works at rehabilitizing the roads. So what we do is replace any deficient curb and sidewalk on the road, and we're able to grind out 2 or 4 inches of asphalt and repave the road. A good example is when we did Broadway in front of Town Hall. You have a road that's very deteriorated. If you leave it for a few more years, it gets worse. But this way it brings it back and it'll last probably for another 15, 20 years. So there are some roads that are sort of past the point of no return. With those ones, they have to do a full reconstruction, but we're trying to catch the roads when they get to about 60% deficient, and then we can bring them up to have the full lifespan. We also look at the underground infrastructure like the water mains, wastewater, and storm to see if other work needs to be done at that time. And it's a program that's very cost-effective financially. And I guess those are the 5 main items I wanted to touch on as part of our budget. I don't know if there's any questions about any of the items.
You can go, yeah. Councillor Andrews, I'll turn it to you first.
I just wanted to ask for clarification. I know that each general manager is going to provide, of course, maybe the top 5 projects, but can we dive further into some of the different budget items that
Yes,
are
absolutely.
Wonderful. I just wanted
Yeah,
to...
anything that you've got for Tim right
Awesome.
now, you can ask those questions
Well,
now.
may I proceed then?
Please go ahead, Councillor Andrews.
Thank you very much, General Manager Tim Koselleck. I do want to also highlight that last item because I was looking at one key part of the budget document here, and I'll just read. It says the New Road Needs Study has identified a potential of a $40 million deficit. And I really want to applaud you for highlighting this as one of your top 5s, because this is, again, a very important part of our movement within our community and, of course, revitalization of our community. As we have the opportunity to dive into a few things in the capital budget, I think this is an opportunity for us on council to kind of get into, not the weeds, and I want to keep it as high level as possible, but there were a couple of items that I did pose some questions to staff for clarification. And for the sake of just expediting this, Your Worship, I just have a couple of points that are highlighted in specific pages on the document. So one that came to mind as, and again, these are almost minuscule in the big scheme of things, but when you have some low-hanging fruit items that kind of have connection to other things within the municipality, they do have some connections in some way. So I'm looking at page, I think it was 110 and 112, the new operational digital sign. So I take a look at that particular request, and it is very small, but in 2027, there's a bigger ask for that. And I'm looking at, I think the question that I had posed is the data for the decision to move to a digital sign that is bigger, that is going to help provide some clarification on road closures, maybe some things that are happening in the community. But we also have a digital sign that is located at Buena Vista and Highway 10, which is a very high-traffic area. So what is the rationale behind that decision?
Mr. Koselleck?
Yep, through your worship. Part of the reason is the sign at the Operations Center is past its lifetime. It was built when the Operations Center was built probably close to 40 years ago, and it needs to be replaced. What we're looking at is having a sign similar to what we have at the Lakeview or at Tony Rose and Alder, maybe a smaller version, but just to be able to alert people, like you mentioned, if there's going to be a fire ban, if there's weather conditions, winter parking bans, fire bans, watering bans, just to give that alert to people. We do get probably about 5,000 to 8,000 cars a day driving in that area. And as I mentioned, we do have them at Alder, Tony Rose, and the Lakeview. We don't have much at that end of town. So it's a way to notify people, let them know there's issues, and we do get a lot of people driving in the area. It's just a different mechanism than we have than our social media to let people know. And I think it'll be quite effective to have it that way. One of the reasons it's being done in multiple years, 1 year we're putting in the conduit and electrical work. We're going to get the base designed because it's a structural sign. It has to be engineered. We'll get the design completed and done, and then we'll do all the sign the following year. So it's a multi-year. We want to make sure it's done too before we do paving of the parking lot, which is being proposed. We don't want to have to pave the parking lot and then come back after to try and do work.
Great, thank you for that clarification on that particular item. And if I may, Mayor Post, another question, and it seems to be signs related to as well. And this is the messaging sign, not messaging sign, this would be known as the speed messaging board. So we have, I guess, 10 in the community right now that are somewhat either permanent or rotated based on the needs. And I know that Deputy Mayor Taylor had spoken about some response that may be on some of those two arteries that have had some data that's identified as being speed areas. Like many of us on council, these are, I think, very important ways of traffic calming, reminding people of adhering to the speed of which you should be driving on certain roads. Can you just provide some clarification on the fact that we're looking at replacing 8 of the 10, and then I looked at the 2025 budget document from last year, and I noticed there was somewhat of a consistent figure that was highlighted over a number of years, but in 2026, the figure is actually higher, and then there's an omission in 2028. So can you provide me with some clarification to that as well?
Mr. Koselleck?
Certainly, through your worship. Actually, I think we have 8 signs, and we're looking to get 10 more in the future.
Okay.
One of the things we're looking at, I guess, you don't know what you can't quantify. So a lot of times people say, oh, there's a speeding issue, there's a traffic issue, we've got thousands of cars, and really we don't know until we count them. And sometimes you want to put them up in multiple sections on the same road. With this, we're looking at having a few more, and part of it, we were doing it before we had the automated speed enforcement being canceled. Part of it, we want to know where we have issues, but part of it also, this feeds into our education and enforcement. Some of the signs we put up have the feedback sign. It says you're driving at 50, you're driving at 40, to let people know and help educate them. Other ones, they're called black cat, they're more hidden, they're a box, so people don't see them the same way. And sometimes we try and use both, so you can see if people see a flashing sign, does it really reduce the speed? And we can compare the two. But we want to try and be able to have better understanding of our speeds, of our traffic volumes. I think historically, they've outsourced some of the work to be done by consultants. This way, if we have more of the equipment in-house, we can do more traffic counts, we can do more speed studies, and then we can work on the education, but also the enforcement. If we can talk to the police and say, at 3 o'clock on Tuesdays, we seem to have a major issue on this corridor, they can help provide enforcement and education too as part of it. So it's more to know what we have, and the more we have, the more we can study the different sections. We put them up usually for a week at a time, so it takes a long time to do multiple streets.
Now, again, I appreciate the detailed response, and my last comment is, and again, through your leadership, Mayor Post, I know that the province is going to make some announcement at some point on some form of traffic calming support for the municipalities, but I hope that they do so sooner than later. But this is a way of at least hopefully educating our community as necessary. That is all I have from a capital point of view. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews, and I've got my ear to the ground waiting for the provincial announcement there. Councillor Sherwood?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to General Manager Koselleck. Page 83 of the budget document refers to EV charging stations, and I just wanted to get an understanding. This is wanting to install 6 new EV charging stations, one of which will go to the water pollution control plant, and then I guess the other 5 at the operations center. And when I look at the budget for 2027, there's a substantial jump for 125. So 35 is just obviously preparing for them. My question to you is do we currently have any electric vehicles in our fleet, and is that obviously the way we're looking for in the future?
Mr. Koselleck?
Through your worship, similar to the sign that we talked about earlier at the operations center, we're looking at paving the parking lot. So one of the things is that we want to put the conduit in and the underground infrastructure before we pave it, and just sort of future readies us a little bit. We don't want to pave the parking lot and then have to cut up after to put conduit in. So in 2026, we're looking at putting the conduit in these areas, and in the future, we'll evaluate the needs if we do have to put the charging infrastructure in, but we'll have it roughed in already if we do need it. At this time, I think we have 1 electric vehicle that we're using with bylaw, and just as a trial item for it. We do have some public charging stations that are across the road that were installed with government funding as part of it, but we're just trying to look at for the future, trying to put some of the conduit and the prepare the site so we can put it in the future if needed.
Just a quick
Councillor Sherwood, yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was you touched lightly on that, and I was just going to ask you: is there government funding that would maybe help reduce the anticipated cost in 2027?
Mr. Koselleck?
Yep, through your worship. That's one of the things we're looking at, trying to find if we can have funding for it. We're looking at the option of having more electric vehicles in 2027 and future years, but we're holding off to see if we can get funding for it. It's one of the things we're actively looking for.
Thank you.
Did you have any other items, Councillor Sherwood? Okay, was there any other items on infrastructure services from any members of council? I don't see anybody in the queue. Okay, you're off the hook for now, Mr. Koselleck. Ms. Savage.
Good evening, Mayor Post, members of council. We're highlighting five capital projects here this evening. So as you know, Community Services oversees about 12 facilities. If you include all of Tim's stuff, the wells and the reservoirs, we're over 52, and over 35 parks. So you can imagine the capital list runs long. We take our time and we prioritize based on what is in need, what is the highest priority and in need to be able to have, to be around for as long as we need to. So 5 key capital projects. The first one is the fire station. I'm not going to go into great detail, just to note that this project was presented to council on November 10th, and council did approve the fire station, which will be the largest facility project that we've built since Alder Recreation Center in 2004. It's 24,000 square foot, a fire station with training grounds and fire suppression. And in 2026, there is an approved amount of $12.7 million, and the remainder is in 2027 and 2028. Rotary Park redevelopment. This is for phase 3 and 4. Phase 1 was the water main. Infrastructure Services replaced the water main that runs under the park. Phase 2 is the playground, which we spoke about last night, will be installed in the spring. And phase 3 and 4. Phase 3 is the resurfacing of the tennis courts, the addition of a tennis court, and the addition of 4 new pickleball courts, which at this point, it's undetermined who will manage those, whether it's the Orangeville Tennis Club or it is the town. Along with new courts to support our local racket programs, There will be asphalt trail connections, lighting, seating. There's going to be shade structures, landscaping. And then phase 4 is the paving of the parking lot, which I know, Mayor Post, you have referred to it as the Wild Wild West. So I think that that is highly needed. We did receive community sport and recreation infrastructure funding from the province, and the risk is if we do not continue with this project, we will lose that funding. This was a recommendation through the 2020 Parks and Rec Master Plan as well, so it's been on the radar for a while. 2026 Trail Development Plan, I think we're all eager for this one to come to fruition. This is completing the trail from Broadway to Town Line. It will include trailheads, seating, public art, wayfinding, and really just complete one of our major corridors right through the city for all forms of transportation. Right now, this project is stalled until we hear from the federal government on the success or not success of our active transportation grant. If you recall, we did apply for $2.4 million to complete 2.14 kilometers of the trail, and it is in partnership with Infrastructure Services, who will do Mill Creek stabilization project. Tony Rose Memorial Sports Center. I say this with love. This has been on our minds for a long time, and I know I received some questions ahead of time. There are 3 components to this budget. The first one is a roof replacement, not roof replacement, sorry. It is a quick fix to a roof. So we had, I think it was Garland Canada last year, did an assessment on the roofs and determined that there are many seams that need to be repaired to prevent any leaking. We've held off as long as possible in order to maintain the ice below and that recreation amenity. That roof needs to be fixed. The second component of this project is the banquet hall, both the bar area and the kitchen. There are some health and safety risks to this area. We are coming very close to not being able to include it in our rental program anymore, and it is an amenity that the community is looking for. The banquet hall is the largest space we do have to rent. And then the third component is facility upgrades. There's 2 parts to this facility upgrades. There's $175,000 in the budget for 2026. This is to help staff conduct the facility needs assessment study. If you recall, we had an assessment study in the budget in the past. We were going to hire a consultant. Council and staff both agree that no need to hire the consultant. We're going to look at all of the great work that has been done in the past. There's been recommendations through a facility assessment from, I believe, 2017. There's the 2021 Recreation and Parks Master Plan that also made many recommendations. Staff is going to do background information. And once we have compiled and formulated what we think should happen with Tony Rose and Alder over the next 10 to 30 years, we're going to take that information out to the community, to the stakeholders, to the user groups, and the general public. And they're going to tell us whether we're on the right track or we're not. That $175,000 is to help with that process, marketing initiatives, architectural concepts, and if we think we need to prepare something for 2027, we may even enlist the help of an engineer to do environmental assessments to see what truly is possible if we're going to be digging around. And the last key capital project is building condition assessments. It's best practice to conduct these building condition assessments every 5 years. It assesses the systems and how well they're working within a facility. And this year, we're proposing to do assessments on the water pollution control plant, Lakeview Court, otherwise known as Tourism Building here, and the OPP station. And that's it for my highlights.
Thank you, Ms. Savage.
Okay.
I will turn it over to council for any questions that they may have either on these projects or anything in community services. We will start with Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. First off, Mr. Koselleck, Ms. Savage, it's amazing to me we've been through so much together as we've gotten to this point tonight, and the storytelling as you go through is just excellent. Like, I feel like my head is hurting because I'm just nodding the entire time. Like, I understand everything that you're saying. None of this is a surprise. It's really well done, and I feel like it's a very cohesive conversation, right? Like, whereas sometimes it's not always, you know. And this is fabulous. So thank you for this. I've a couple comments. One, if I could be humorous for a minute. When I was looking at the maps on the previous slides, I saw Scott Drive, and I actually thought it said South Park at first, and I was curious. I don't need glasses. I don't know what was that all about, but either way, 2 comments. So the Tony Rose one is the biggest one, and Ms. Savage, I shared with you ahead of time, and I just feel really strongly this is what I think is one of the most key things that we need to look forward to, you know, as we go down the path together in the future, is Tony Rose. And I certainly understand the repairs to the roof. Like, my first thought is, let's not spend a nickel on this place until we fully understand. We won't have that understanding, and you need to protect the asset in some sort of way. Even if it goes to the ground, it still has to be protected for a period of time while we figure out what we're going to do. So I certainly understand that. I understand the needs assessment study. Maybe even the bar renovation. Like, to me, honestly, I'd just shut it down. I know that's pretty crazy and draconian, but I'll take the advice, and that's fine. Where I have issue is 2027 and 2028, and I've been on council for a little bit. I enjoy it. I pay attention. I want people to know that we're paying attention, and this is highly controversial. I think it's wrong for us to have those amounts in there in 2027 and 2028. It will look like, if we vote yes to this document, that all of us on council are saying that we are good with Tony Rose and putting more money into it. And I'm just simply not. I will be good. I know we need to do something, but we don't have a plan. And if it goes back to, as an example, when we did the pool assessment, and there was some controversy about should we keep it open or not. And the idea was we could spend, and I'm pretty sure the amount was 1.2, it might have been 1.8 million to kind of keep it running. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is a terrible idea. We know it can't keep running. We know we're going to spend, it's like fixing a used car that you know has only got 6 more months to go. Just pack it in. And then we had to close the pool for that result. I don't think that having that in the budget until we know what the plan is the right thing. And I'm just going to vote no. And I'll vote no on principle because I don't want to go through an election next year and have people thinking that I was in favor of spending when we don't know what the plan is and I can't articulate what that is. So I would prefer that it just came out and we could all talk about, we know we've got a needs assessment study. We know we've got to get that done and go from there. And I just have one more, if I could, and then I'll turn to you. The building assessment on the next page, it's brilliant. It's exactly what we should be doing. And we should have been doing that all the way along. And I think we sort of fell off our collective horses as we went. I love the fact that you're on those buildings in particular. I just want to share with everybody that my fear, my prediction is that that building for the OPP, it's going to come back and they're going to say that this no longer suits their needs. We're in trouble. And I'm forgetting now when it was built. I've lived here since 2002. But my feeling is that building is going to be the next thing that we're all challenged with. It doesn't necessarily work for the new organization now, and I bet that that's what that assessment is going to say. So that's concerning and something to think of, and I bet you the other ones just require odds and sods and maintenance, but the OPP facility will be interesting, and then I'd love your comments on Tony Rose.
2005 is your answer, according to Mr. Curry. And Ms. Savage, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Post. Since my time here, we have allocated funding in the capital program for Tony Rose, $2 million in 2024, and then we upped it to $6 million in 2025. Essentially, it's a placeholder until we figure out what we're going to do with it. But think of it similar to when Alder Pool was not doing well, and we put the money in to renovate and rebuild that pool to what the community needed, but we were concerned that there were areas of weakness in the rest of the building. So we did an invasive structural assessment at that time, which cost us $100,000, and then we added $300,000 to that pot just in case we found something. So we would be ready to go to be able to rectify any issues we saw. Tony Rose upgrades is much bigger than rectifying issues, right? We're going to be probably tearing it down and rebuilding it. The needs assessment is going to identify what this community wants from their 2 community centers. Those recommendations are going to be brought to council at the end of 2026. At that point, we're hoping for approval. If we don't have any funding, further funding in the budget, those recommendations are going to sit idle for a year until we return to council for budget funding in 2028. So maybe 6 million is not the right amount. Maybe it might be something less, but something to get started. We would want to, if we knew that we are going to do something. So right now, one of the recommendations is that the 2020-2021 Parks and Rec Master Plan says decommission the pool, decommission Tony Rose B, move an additional arena, expand Alder by 1.5 arenas. We know, and I know Sharon Doherty's online, but her team and Charles Cosgrove's here, their team are, and I've said this before, our demand is high and our supply is low. So one of the results of the facility needs assessment is to say, yes, we're going to have to build out. We're going to have to expand what we have in order to meet the needs of the services. And we're going to be looking to our neighboring municipalities to be supporting us with these things. Stay tuned, that's next year. But in this case, whatever we decide at the end of 2026, we're going to have to sit on it for a year. So is there a way that we can phase it in? Is there a way we can start environmental assessments? We can onboard a general contractor. We can onboard an architectural firm, get the plans ready to go, and all of those things are going to require money in 2027.
Ms. Savage, I'm going to turn it over to CAO Smith and then to Ms. Braun.
Yeah, Heather, Ms. Savage is quite right in her response. I wanted to add 2 things. Number one is, Deputy Mayor, you said that you would vote no. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to clarify the process, because this is new this year. This is the mayor's budget. The mayor's budget has been tabled. What we'll be looking for tomorrow is amendments to the budget. So, Deputy Mayor, if this is something that you don't support, you would propose an amendment to the budget, and then that would get voted on. So that's the process that we're following. Heather spoke eloquently about the need for the recreation part of it. I would like the treasurer to speak a little bit about the benefit of having placeholders in our capital budget. In fact, our whole capital budget beyond 2026 is a series of placeholders. So this isn't different really from any of the other estimates in there. We appreciate your comments, and we can always push the number out a little bit, but the treasurer will probably advise that it's important to have money available in the budget somewhere for future projects, but she'll speak to that.
Ms. Braun?
Yes, David stole my thunder, but yes. So if you were to remove a project of this significance from budget, $6 million, it's really hard once you've reprioritized and you've allocated funding to other projects to just drop in another $6 million, especially in an immediate window. You might need to push it way out, probably beyond the 10-year planning horizon. So my recommendation, if you're uncomfortable with, seemingly approving a project to proceed, maybe push it out 2 or 3 more years into the forecast so that we can still plan to have the right amount of funding and from different funding sources, be that debt or property taxes or what have you. Additionally, like if there are some growth-related components, it's always best to have something in your capital program so you can capture that in future background studies.
Thank you, Ms. Braun. Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mayor Post. Sorry, through you. I have a question for Ms. Savage. I was just wondering about the trail, and it's wonderful that we may be able to perhaps receive a grant from the federal government. But I know that we've been waiting a significant amount of time. And I'm just wondering, at what point will the town decide that we're going to just go ahead with the trail?
Ms. Savage?
Thank you, Mayor Post. To you, Councillor Prendergast. At what point? Well, I turn to my colleague here, who the first part of the project is going to be accomplished through the infrastructure services team. And what I've been told is that their window would begin July 1st because they have to manage the fisheries window, right? Because they're dealing with Mill Creek. So I would think that our timeline is built around that when the project is starting. I may be speaking out of turn, I'm guessing.
CAO Smith, do you have something to add?
Sure, I'll just comment. Some members of council may know or may not know the federal government is currently actively awarding grants for the grant program that we applied for. I'm seeing in the news feeds this community, that community are getting those grants. The mayor has been advocating with our local MP on that. So we will find out soon, I suspect, whether we were successful or not. And then I would turn it back to Councillor Prendergast. It'll be a council decision on whether you want to advance funding it solely in-house or whether you want to delay waiting for a grant. But the project is ready to go. There is some window of environmental work that has to happen first, but we need council to say either go without the grant or wait for the grant.
Councillor Prendergast?
Would we see something come to council or in the spring, perhaps then, with a decision prior to July?
Ms. Savage?
Through you, Mayor Post. There's no further approvals required from council. We did go to council and we gained approval to apply for the grant, and if we were successful, then mayor and I believe treasurer clerk can execute the contract, but we would make an announcement. Announcements are according to the federal government and how they roll out, but we would inform council.
Councillor Prendergast, you're good? Okay. Do you just want to shut off your mic there? Councillor Andrews?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have 3 items and through you. First of all, I want to thank you very much for your response to the Tony Rose questions that I had, very similar to Deputy Mayor Taylor. And again, Ms. Braun, thank you also for your clarification on the placeholder. I think that was a very important item for us on council to understand. Regarding the item that was highlighted in Tony Rose, the game changer for me is, in fact, the investment in the banquet hall. So an example, we take a look at a place that some of our members of council have attended most recently, Westminster United. They did some upgrading there a few years ago. Same with the kitchen. Because there is an absence of space that's available in our community, and we've spoken about this candidly, not only amongst council, but even through staff and members of our community, I think this will be an investment that will end up paying dividends for us for quite some time. Absolutely needed, and I totally agree. The other is, in fact, Rotary Park, which really caught my eye. And again, thank you for the vision and the commitment of having the opportunity of getting a grant, all the people that were involved. The idea of the pickleball courts and all the other amenities that will be a part of the next phase are really critical for our community. My question is actually, if a member of the community or an organization, so case in point, we've had the Lions who've come forth and are providing some support for the new, whatever we call it, the track park or whatever it's identified over at a pump track over at, I'm going to have to get out there and do it in the spring of 2026. If we had a community group that wanted to do something, is there space available at Rotary to consider, I'm not saying anything in particular, but there's of course some members of our community at times who have spoken, who say they have an idea, and again, it goes through you and your team and from a facility needs assessment, and if it aligns, is that possible at some point within phase 2 or phase 3? Is there some space available?
Ms. Savage?
Through you, Mayor Post, Councillor Andrews. Are you talking about a partnership where people, people are contributing to the overall development of that
Very similar
park?
to the tennis club as an example.
Okay.
Yeah.
The best way to vet any of those ideas is through the facility needs assessment. We're going to take any and all ideas. If you're interested in being consulted, we have a running list of stakeholders. Send me an email. I'll put you on the list.
That's all I need.
And
Yep.
And I do want to mention that the next phase in the in the Parks and Rec master plan, I believe the next phase was for a skating trail.
Yes.
My team and I are mulling that over. I have history with skating trails. The weather is not usually cooperative. They're very expensive. There are other opportunities to build something out where we have maybe something where it's water in the summer and it's ice in the winter, and it just might look a little bit different, but there still is room to bring those ideas forward, and we together can develop the rest of the plan for Rotary Park.
Good, thank you. I know it's not necessarily capital related, but it is, in fact, from a vision perspective, and these things all align with some of the decisions that are being made even today. So you've answered all my questions, and thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Deputy Mayor Taylor?
I just wanted to thank everybody for, we get kicked out, so I couldn't go back. I wanted to thank everybody for their commentary on Tony Rose. If I could be so personal, I think the worst thing that we ever did was the pool over at Alder. And just the way it went down, the time it took, the amount of discovery, and I'm not pointing fingers, I'm taking responsibility for that as a member of the council that was here. And that's why I'm so cautious about Tony Rose. And when you can't articulate what your plan is, I think it's a really strange thing to be setting things forth. In the business world, we would set things forth, like we would do exactly as you're describing, like you'd put items in the years and go forward, and that makes perfect sense to me. In democracy, when you face the people and you can't describe the story because I don't know, it makes me very reluctant to go forward. And I just wanted to share why I certainly take your counsel in much respect. I don't see why we would do that. If it takes more time and we eventually make the right decision, I'd feel better about more time in making the right decision. We've already waited this long. It's an embarrassment as it is. It is. It's a terrible arena. It's awful to walk into. We all know it. It needs to be addressed, but I just want to be cautious about the plan. And so anyway, thank you very much for what you're saying. I just wanted to offer my thoughts to what you're putting down there. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Ms. Savage. 217 of the budget mentions about furnishing at the fire hall, furnishings and fixtures. And if I take the proposed budget for 2026 and the proposed budget for 2027, we're looking at $538,000 in furnishings. I'm going to assume that the way that this capital project detail is worded, that the $200,000 is strictly for the Dawson Road location to fix old broken down things. None of it is for the new fire hall, because obviously in 2026 we don't have the new fire hall. So is the $338,000 proposed for in 2027, is that all just kind of a placeholder for the new hall, or is some of that money needed to still bring the Dawson Road facility up to par? Because it looks like none of the $200,000 is for the new hall.
Ms. Savage?
Through you, Mayor Post. Wondering if I could call a friend. I was locked out of my computer. Right, it's for the new fire hall? As far as I'm understanding, the entire FF&E budget is for the new fire hall, but you're referring to some, oh, thank you.
So clarification.
Yeah.
So in 2026, there's an ask for $200,000. If I look at the project details, it looks to me like everything for that $200,000 is for the current hall, nothing for the new hall. Then 2027, there's another $338,000 in a projected, and I want to know, is that a placeholder to furnish the new hall, or is some of that money also to still put back into the old hall?
CAO Smith?
Yeah, Councillor Sherwood, could you tell us what you're looking at? Like, are you
Oh, sorry, I
looking at-
did mention page 217.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Page 217, the fire station furniture and fixtures.
Sorry if
Ms.
I may,
Savage, go
Mayor
ahead.
Post. So I'm reading the description, and I can see maybe that there is some confusion and why there's some confusion. The opening line says that to ensure the fire station remains fully operational and continues to meet all necessary needs. So it sounds like it is for the existing fire hall, right? It's not. It is for the new fire hall. This FF&E is to outfit the new fire hall. There has been no allocation of funding for Dawson at all.
Councillor Sherwood?
Your worship, so what I'm wanting clarification kind of on the 2027 is the way this project is written, it's looking like you're wanting another 338,000 for Dawson Road as well. And I'm saying, do we need $538,000 in furnishing on that old fire hall? Or is that a placeholder for the new fire hall?
Correct.
Just a second, it looks like our...
Correct. FF&E for the new fire hall.
We phoned a friend, so Chief is here to... Ms. Savage, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Post. Sorry about that, Councillor Sherwood. So Chief Snyder confirmed that the funding, $200,000, is to replace broken equipment at Dawson, which will then be moved to Centennial, to Commerce. So chairs, tables, kitchen, desks, it will be replaced at Dawson because they're end of life, and then it will all be moved over to the new station. The remainder of the funding is for the new station.
Raylene, could you? Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor
I'm so sorry. Sorry to make this sound so confusing. So, yeah, there's no mention of that in here, that it's going, like if I look at that project, that it's going to the new hall. But I guess I'm kind of jumping the gun here. What is the $338,000 going to do in 2027? Because we're still going to be running administration out of on Dawson Road. They're still going to need chairs and furniture and fridges and stoves, right?
Right, and it may not be used in that year, it may be purchased in that year, but the remainder of the funding is to go for FF&E for the new station. Whether we're in a position to purchase that equipment at the end of 2027 may not be the case, therefore it'd be a carry forward over to 2028. And when we say furniture, fixtures, and equipment, that's everything. That's hand dryers, that's electrical fixtures, that's countertops, microwaves, desks, the whole bit.
Should we have not have made a special capital project for the new fire hall rather than integrating it with this? Anyhow, that's just I find that confusing. That's all.
Thanks, Councillor Sherwood. Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mayor Post. Ms. Braun, I have a question for you. So it's about the placeholders, and I just am looking for some clarification or maybe an explanation. So why do we put placeholders in the long-range plan? So earlier you mentioned that if it's not there, then we would need to push it back like further years, maybe even 10 years. So let's say in the case of Tony Rose, if we didn't have a placeholder for $6 million in the next 2 or 3 years. What's the rationale for that? That's what I don't understand. Does the placeholder impact the debt ratio that you calculate? So that's why it would have to be pushed back 10 years? Is there a really good reason why we could explain to the general public why it should be there? Because the need for the community is not going to change. We're still going to need some type of recreation facility. So if it's not in the budget, whatever that is, like in 27 or 28, would that mean that we couldn't feasibly do that until much, much later?
Ms. Braun?
Through you, Mayor Post. It is a bit of an art, I would say, when we put together the capital program. We do prioritize our capital expenditure. And my point was, if we take out a significant expenditure in the more immediate window, that capacity would probably get filled with other projects that if they were to proceed, we couldn't necessarily put the brakes on them at that point. And then we'd have to push that project further out in the window when we had more funding capacity for it.
Councillor Prendergast?
Thank you. With 68% of our capital projects being carryover projects, it seems, is that high or is that normal? Like, that was a question I had too. Or is it just kind of the times that we're in with supply chain and post-COVID world? I don't know if that's a question for you, but.
Ms. Braun, do you want to take that one?
Through you, Mayor Post, I'll take a bit of a crack at it. I would say it's not unusual in the municipal sector because it is difficult to kind of gauge exactly when an expenditure might, and there's delays and weather and things like that that impact when a project will be completed. Presumably, we then take that into account when we adjust our new requests. We would move some of those new requests out a few years because we know that we have a backlog to get at.
Was there any other community services questions? I don't see anybody else on the docket. Okay, I will turn it over then to Ms. Minikilo.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, colleagues, and members of the public. Like my colleagues in infrastructure services and community services, our focus in corporate services is delivering reliable services today and ensuring we're ready for tomorrow. We didn't have 5 projects, so tonight you'll hear from three key capital projects from the corporate services team that strengthen service excellence, reduce our risk, and support the town's long-term readiness. Project number 1 is the tax and financial system upgrade. A tax and financial system, I understand, can sound a little abstract. However, it touches almost everything we do. Think about paying our vendors, processing invoices, issuing bills to residents, recording costs and revenues to monitor our performance. It's basically our financial backbone. Our current system will no longer be supported beyond 2027, which means we must plan today to ensure we're ready for tomorrow. So the plan is to select and implement a secure cloud-based platform that will strengthen our financial reporting, integrate seamlessly with other corporate systems, which our current system does not do very well, and streamline workflows and automate many aspects of our record keeping. This is an inevitable and foundational investment that supports the town's operational capacity well into the future. And the way we funded it is incrementally through to 2027. So we've been putting aside a little bit of money for the last few years to fund this project. Project number 2 is one that you're familiar with. It's our municipal website update. Our website is the town's cornerstone public communications tool. It's how we support and interact with our residents, visitors, and businesses 24/7, 365 days a year. For Orangeville, orangeville.ca is an essential stop. Orangeville.ca saw close to 750,000 visits last year, and our usage continues to climb, with visits up 10.6% year over year, backed by data. So our current platform is also being decommissioned, and we must transition to a new accessible solution that positions us for the future in both accessibility and leveraging AI technologies. Both the tax and financial system upgrades and the municipal website update are due to decommissioning of current platforms. So we're going to leverage these opportunities and investments to position Orangeville for service excellence and ensure that we have AI integrations weaved in to future-proof our investments. Project number 3 is our annual IT reliability and cybersecurity investments. Our third project is the investments into our IT systems and cybersecurity, and investments like these keep us secure, resilient, and in a constantly evolving technological environments. These are annual investments we make year over year, so there's nothing net new here, but I thought it was important to showcase that we continue to make those investments. So in closing, the investments we're making in corporate services are necessary and foundational, and together they position the town for future readiness. I'm happy to take any questions on the corporate services budget.
Thank you, Ms. Minikilo. Was there any questions from members of council on any of those items or anything else in the capital budget for corporate services? I see nothing. You're off the hook. That was easy. Okay, so with that then, we will go to any questions. If there's any other questions about any item, Deputy Mayor Taylor?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I just kind of wanted to offer a general perspective. Like, I honestly think this is the best capital budget I've ever seen. And this is 8 times now. it's truly fantastic, and I just love the storytelling. I love the thought that's gone on to it. I love the way that you took us on the journey. I'm really proud of the work that you, Tim, and your team have done on the water. I think that's just fabulous. We identified that we had a major issue, and it was a major issue, so much so that the public was concerned about it. And this is going to be solved in not short order, but it's going to be solved. So kudos to you. The fire hall, Ms. Savage, with the safety element and answering what I think is important to the county. It's just fantastic work, and I know it was frustrating for you, and a ton of work went into that, but it's worth it. And then the last one I do want to call out, which I think is a stroke of brilliance, and the storytelling that was told on this was really well done, and I'll call it the Curry Plan, but it's the road resurfacing initiative, the Curry Plan, and I think it's really well done. At first I was wondering where we were going, but the idea that we're ahead of it, and if we're ahead of it, that we're going to spend less money and be in a better spot, it just makes perfect sense. It's really, really well done, and it excites me about where we're going, and I think about, again, the storytelling that you just did. It's the rec centers moving forward. It's the planning studies of what we need to focus in on. And I think the third one, and it was lightly touched on, but it's this investment strategy piece, David, and where you're taking the team. And for me in particular, it's all about what are we doing to drive more revenue sources for the town, and the thoughtfulness of what that's going to be and where we're going to go. Because the ultimate payer right now is the taxpayer, and the taxpayer is struggling mightily, right? So the well is drying, and what are we going to do? And we've got avenues that we can go down, and we've discussed them, and I'm really pleased with your leadership as we think about that and the thing. And I just think it's a great document. It's a strange thing for the politician to stand up and offer such bouquets, but it's really great. And I just wanted to thank everybody for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Extremely well said. Can you shut off your mic? Councillor Sherwood?
Yes, Your Worship. Sorry, I was a little late. I was still at the back of the bus and I had a question, and I'm so sorry. I'm on page 249 of the document regarding infrastructure, information, IT. And I wanted to go back to the security and data integrity. So it's a carry forward of 232, 267. And yet the forward ask in 2027 is exactly the same dollar amount. And then it starts petering down from there. And I'm just wondering, there was no new ask in 2026. Why wouldn't we have asked for a little bit more and to reduce that request in the future? Do you see the line I'm referring to? I just find it very odd that the 2026 is exactly the same amount projected for 2027. Obviously, with our recent cyber...
I can take a first crack at that. Through you, Mayor Post, to Councillor
Minkiela,
Sherwood,
yeah.
and then Armando's free to weave in. We had $400,000 in carry forward, and so we thought we'd spread it evenly over the next 2 years, and then we'll reevaluate where we go from there.
We just need your mic on. There we go.
Sorry, it's a forecast. So the world, that cyber world, is in flux, and we want to make sure that we have a reserve there should something come up. We've been actively managing that environment this year. We've done some work that requires investment next year, which may require investment the year after. So it's a placeholder.
A placeholder, okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you, Councillor Sherwood. Was there any other questions on any of the items in any department? Councillor Andrews, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. And just very quickly, and this is for our General Manager of Corporate Services, I wanted to, again, thank you for leading, as well as the team, regarding the website as our calling card. Very important portal, the 700,000 plus visitors. Two questions. Further integration with all the departments, correct? Correct, yeah. And number two, any updates on an app? We had one, if I'm not mistaken, in 2020 that was looked upon as a possibility, and I think there was a launch of it, and I don't recall it ever kind of coming to fruition. In this world where many of us are using smartphones and look for instantaneous information, and it kind of connected back to what I was speaking about when I was highlighting the piece about the digital sign, that integration is really important. So as part of your budget and the upgrading of the website, is that potentially part of that, or would that be kind of phase two-ish? And
Ms.
maybe in
Minikila?
2027?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Post, to Councillor Andrews, I'll offer two things. The integration is going to be weaved into everything we do in corporate services, and any new systems we take on from an IT perspective, we absolutely have to adopt more of that thinking. So I think that's broad-based statement and will be true in whatever projects we do, whether it's finance or the website. In terms of the app, I'm tempted to think of how people are evolving their use of apps. People are now going to AI or speaking to their phone and not necessarily logging into an app. So my concern with, we didn't build in an app intentionally because that space is evolving so quickly. We may invest in an app and people don't use it. It's like, hey Siri, hey Google, what time is Orangeville Town Hall open till today? So we think the return on investment in the app may be low, but we can evaluate that. The future really seems to be driven by large language models, AI, in terms of how people are accessing their information. So what we want is that the source of truth that AI is going to mine from is our website. So people are getting factual, data-driven information instead of hallucinations that might be giving it false information. So we're not contemplating an app at this time.
Councillor Andrews?
Yeah, thank you. And I wanted to hear that clarification, not only for council's benefit, but also for the general public. Because again, I'm on board with the AI, and I like how you framed it from an hallucination perspective. You want to make sure that you have accuracy in the information. And yes, we are heading down that path. I look at my vehicle, I can end up asking it, the same thing. And I don't necessarily need to have an app, but this is where we have been from a utilization of technology and or the content creation, and we're now moving to the next phase. So I'm truly appreciative that that's on your radar and it's included as part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Sherwood?
Yes, Your Worship. I just wanted to ask, page 122, there's capital, no, that's the wrong page. It's about the stormwater SWMF. If I look at page 124, it's a little frightening to see 300,000 in the 2026 budget, and then it go to 2.5 million in 2027, as well as there was another stormwater that was going to go to 3 million or something on page 122. No, never mind. The stormwater management on Amelia. What does it mean? What are we looking at here for it to go from 300,000? That by us, it looks like we're committing to something of $2.5 million.
Mr. Kozlak?
Page 124.
Yep, through your worship. What we're doing with that stormwater pond, it's the one on Amelia, and it was built in the early 90s or late 80s. It's never been cleaned. So what we're looking at doing is in 2026, we're going to retain a consultant, work on doing the detailed design, work through the approvals with the Conservation Authority, Department of Fisheries, and then 2027 would be cleaning the pond. So it'll be removal of all the sediment. It hasn't been done in 30, 40 years. Considerable sediment to be able to be removed. As part of it, we're also going to have a public information system in 2026, meet with the residents, let them know what's being done, but 2027 would be the cleaning and then reinstatement of the pond. It is a fairly expensive process with cleaning the ponds. We won't know the actual price until we tender it out, but it is very expensive, and that's an accurate estimate of the price.
Follow up, Your Worship. I just noticed in the documents, like from page 119 to 122, I mentioned there's lots of work for the SWMF for different locations, and that one seemed to jump out with this $2 million. So we are expecting that whatever you want to do at these other locations, like Young Court, can be done and cleaned up within the proposed budget amount, correct? Without having any further funding request in 2027.
Yeah, Through your worship, one of the reasons we did it as a two-stage with that pond on Amelia is due to the size and the cost of it. For the young court, we're looking at tendering it this summer, and we also have two other ones, one at Lisa Marie
Sandraham.
and the Sandraham Court. Both those are being the design right now, and we expect to tender it probably late February, with the construction being done in the summertime. And those being smaller, it's a smaller dollar value for the ponds.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Sherwood. Seeing no further questions from council, I think that will conclude our capital budget presentation today. I do want to echo what Deputy Mayor Taylor said and, thank all of the team who put all their time and effort into a really strong capital budget. I don't think there's anything there that isn't absolutely needed, so appreciate all the hard work that went into it. With that, we will just go straight into bylaws. The recommendation is that the confirmatory bylaw for the special council meeting held today be read 3 times and finally passed. Can I have a mover and a seconder?
Sorry, Mayor Post.
Oh.
8.2.1.1 is a recommendation on the
thank you.
capital program.
Yes, thank you. Before we go into bylaws, we do have a recommendation that report CPS 2025-98, the 2026 to 2035 capital program be received. Can I have a mover and seconder? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Prendergast. All in favor? And that is carried. And then the confirmatory bylaw, if I could have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Stevens, seconded by Deputy Mayor. All in favor? And that is carried. And a motion to adjourn tonight. Councillor McIntosh and Councillor Stevens. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And we will be back again tomorrow night at 7 o'clock for the operating budget.